Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, looking at ourselves in the world through the lens of the 21st century. Welcome back. I'm Amber Jones, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Kristen Blakely and Cindy Murray.
Hello. Hello.
Well, today we have a bit of a fun episode. We're talking about books.
Yay.
I know we talk about books a lot.
We talk about books all the time.
We literally just talked about books.
I know we just talked about a book a couple
Swedish
episodes
death
ago.
cleaning, and then we talked about
We've been talking
Anatomy.
about
anatomy of an epidemic. And then, no, I'm just kidding. I'm poking fun.
Well, I mean, okay, so we like to talk about books.
Yeah,
My
we
goodness. Today we're focusing on, well, it's kind of like, yes, like it's spring and everything's going on. So maybe like a lighter topic. We're talking about, like, I guess, two different things, I guess. We're talking about like romantasy and the rise, like pretty much like the rise of romantasy. Because like it used to be, I mean, there's always have been fantasy romances.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's, fantasy, and then there's romance, but like, why is everybody obsessed with it now?
Well, maybe start off with what romantasy is, just in case someone doesn't know.
True. So a romantasy is a romance with fantasy elements. So like it blends together. The central storyline is a romantic storyline, and then it's in a fantasy setting where there's, magic, supernatural powers, mythical creatures, invented worlds, alternate realms. So if it's a romance, like the central plot is romance, something that has to do with romance. And then everything else is just kind of secondary, right? So where like a high fantasy novel would be like the central plot would be fantasy elements. And then if there's romance in it, it's just kind of blended in.
Like Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah. What were their names?
That's the most
but
unromantic, but there is
some romance in there.
Yeah,
there's
a love
interest. Yeah. Wheel of Time, of course. Y'all haven't read Wheel of Time, but there's fantasy, but then there's romance. Game of Thrones. Fantasy, but then there's romance. The romance, lots of romances actually in Game of Thrones, but those aren't central to the plot. And so romantasy would be that two people meeting and falling in love would be central to the plot, and everything else is just kind of secondary. So it could be like written any way that you want it, but that two people are going to meet and fall in love and end up together at the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in like Lord of the Rings, when they, get to the end, you're like,
there's really not a happy ending. And
I love all
Game
that
of
romance.
Thrones either, yeah.
You're not, when you get to the end of Game of Thrones, you're all like, you're not like, I love all that romance that was happening with the dragons and everything like that. There was no dragon romance if you've never read, but that is actually like a thing, though, in the romantasy.
In that field, there absolutely is in that genre.
And so and these romantasies, they follow kind of like different plot elements or tropes, as they're called, such as enemies to lovers, forbidden love, magical bonds, fated mates, like different kinds of tropes. And then of course there are different kinds of romantasy if you want to like dig any deeper than that. And there's dark romance. There's cozy romance. So, there are like, subgenres within the romantasy world. Kristen's favorite, monster romance,
Is that
alien romance. She's deceptively quiet over there.
Yes. I'm
I
just
was looking at her
listening.
like, what are you gonna say?
Yeah,
I'm just listening.
We all know that Kristen is a monster and alien romance fan. So, but me, I guess I've always been a vampire girl because I am a vampire. And like a lot of like the modern day romantasies, they're like they revolve around fae and fairies. Those are
Right.
like the popular ones now. And I'm just like, man, we're the vampires.
Well, I mean, you talk about the romantasy being a relatively new thing, but
no, it's not new.
Right.
It's just relatively newly popular.
I think it became popular
again.
like super popular with Twilight. I really think that was the start of it becoming because it was fantasy.
Yeah, when we
And-
say popular, we mean mainstream.
Yeah,
But
like
it
pop
was.
culture, mainstream. Well,
That
currently in 2026, it is like popular.
Twilight was huge.
Well, yes.
And then 50 Shades of Grey came out, and all the girlies who were like, oh, I like fantasy romance, and I like romance. And then they went, oh, I think I might like those kind of books where they marry both of those two plots, fantasy. Because
Yeah.
there's always been those romance novels about vampires. And
Yeah, there's
say
always
always,
been
but-
fantasy
Right.
romance.
But
I was
I
just
really
talking
feel
about like why,
Yeah.
how it's so popular in
it really has
2026.
I think
and
Twilight
people-
kicked it off. I really do.
But Twilight came out 20 years ago. I'm
Yeah.
talking about like now.
But that was the engine that gave that.
Well, sure,
It was the little snowball that
Yeah.
started it rolling down the hill.
Well,
I
sure,
don't
yeah, that
know,
was
like,
like
'cause it
20
was
years
huge.
ago when Kristen and I were in our 20s. Yeah, it became pretty huge, and then like
It's
now
huger
the
now.
people our age are writing these romance
Right.
books, kind of based on that.
Because it got started.
Harry Potter,
Yeah.
Twilight, Giver, whatever, Hunger Games, whatever, and it's just kind of
Well,
snowballing.
I don't
and-
consider Hunger Games a romantasy. I don't consider Harry Potter a romantasy.
Yes, but it's
No,
fantasy.
it's just the fantasy is what she's
Right.
saying. Like,
Yeah, it's just like
20 years ago we
the-
read those books, and now
like the
there's,
people
Well,
that
that's
are
it.
the people that are writing these books now
Are the
were
people who grew up
influenced
watching-
by those things.
Reading
Twilight,
Twilight. Yeah.
Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Giver.
Right.
All of those things that I'm saying. Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Interview with the Vampire. All of those like 90s, early to mid 2000s ish things that the millennials like. They're like super popular now. But what I was rounding about it is that like one of the main things that has made it so popular right now is BookTok
Okay.
or TikTok.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like back when Kristen and I were in school, how did you pick out a book you wanted, Kristen?
by the cover.
Well, I mean, but where'd you get the book? Where'd you find out about it?
You had to go to the library or the bookstore,
Yeah. You had to go to the library or the bookstore.
or someone had
Or
to
at
tell
the, or
you
at the
about
grocery store, because sometimes in the magazines they'd have a few little
Yeah.
books.
it. Oh, yeah, a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to
Walmart.
get off your butt and go places, right?
Yeah, you did.
Now,
Well,
now,
that's
how
true.
do you find out about
That's
a book?
true about everything.
Yeah, but now it's like in your face on the social media.
Oh, absolutely.
Or,
Yeah.
just asking Chat GPT, I can be like, what kind of books should I read? I like these things.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, yeah,
It's different. For
you
sure.
can still go to the store, and which
Yeah.
I love to do. But like now, and then like if you wanted a book recommendation,
Yeah.
you would ask the librarian or look at a review in a magazine.
I think that's really like where you're going though, is that mainstream readers are growing in they're influenced by what they see on
TikTok.
Right,
TikTok
right.
Yeah.
because that's even one of the things that the writers are saying is that there are more and more people reading who wouldn't have normally picked up a book and read because they saw a video on TikTok about Sarah J. Maas's Court of Akatar, whatever, right? And so they saw people's little 60-second quibs about the book and they were like, ooh, I want to go read that book. And women are actually going and reading those books because other women are saying like, oh my gosh, this book is so good. Like even men are picking up these books and reading
Yeah,
them because they're like, all these people are talking about it. Must be good. Like
Book
droves of men who
influencers.
wouldn't normally read a romance novel are picking
Right.
them up and reading them. And so,
and liking them.
yeah.
And it was very much the same thing with the Twilight phenomenon.
Yeah.
Like when Twilight came out, kids were buying the book and they were loving it, and their parents were picking up the
Exactly.
book and reading the book also.
It was crazy. Everybody, everywhere you look,
Boys,
somebody was reading
girls.
that
And
book.
someone was talking about it.
Yeah, and
Well,
that was why I
okay.
read
But
the
the
book.
thing about Twilight, though, that's interesting is that I never heard of the book until the first movie.
Oh,
And so-
really?
until people started buzzing about the movie
Oh.
because all the people who had already read the book were excited that there was going to be a movie about it. Same thing with
yeah.
Harry Potter.
You never.
Right.
Is I'd never heard of Harry Potter until that first movie came out, and
That
people
is
were
very
like,
true,
"Oh my
too.
gosh, the
But
book was so good."
I did have that experience with Harry Potter, but I actually was exposed to Twilight before the movie because Steven's cello teacher was reading it and she was obsessed with it. And I remember when the second book came out, she was like, "Oh my God, the new book is out!" Yay!
When they came out, they were instantly popular, and I remember going to Barnes and Noble and
Yeah.
seeing these books stacked up everywhere with like the flower and the apple.
It kind of makes you
and-
wonder if it was actually her publicist that got.
Well, absolutely.
I
Always.
mean, because the
That's
first
way it
book
works.
comes out and then all of a sudden it's like a bestseller. I mean,
That's-
you look at the cover
the
of it, it
publisher-
looks enticing.
The publisher is responsible for all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that is like how the books are today, right? Krista and I, we've talked about this millions of times, like how suddenly all of the books, when you go into the store, they look so enticing.
They look so much
Oh.
more.
You know what? I buy books off of the covers. I do, or the title.
I know they always say don't judge a book by its cover, but it's really hard to not do that when they have these beautiful covers and now they're spraying edges.
Yeah,
and they're
like
just
the-
really investing in
the hardbacks are just like so.
yeah.
And then, then they have all these cloth bound classics with like the gold
Yeah.
edges and
It
everything
really-
like
'cause
that.
Before, like a hardback book was a coveted thing and a paperback was a throwaway. You got,
Right.
especially in the romance novel world, they have so many of them.
So
They
many
were
of the little
almost all
paperbacks, like
paperbacks,
boxes
yeah.
and
Yeah, you got
boxes
them
of
in a
them.
paperback, and then it was like you read it, and then you passed it on to a friend, and because they mass produce so many like new books, right, and they're like little snacks, you just plow through them, and then you're like, here's a bag of like
The
my
little
aunt literally.
Harlequins.
My aunt literally gave me a whole box full of them. She was like, here you go. I read all of these. You can have them now. And the hardbacks are, it's like, oh, they spent so much money on it. It must be a good book. Nice little psychological trick there with
Yeah.
their marketing.
Right.
And now we call them trophies, trophy books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people
I
are
have a
like
few of
literally putting them on their shelves like they are trophies, and they're facing the books where you don't see like the name of the book, you see the beautiful sprayed edges of the books.
Yeah.
And you can go on like social media and search BookTok or search just like books, and there are a million book influencers, men and women. I watched one the other day where there was like this big burly man with a huge beard, and he was talking about romantasy books. So like, and then the whole like aesthetic bookshelf is now a thing with all of the trophies on it,
Right,
and like
right.
the color coded, and it's such a marketing ploy because like all of the titles are very similar to these books as well. Starting with A Court of Thorns and Roses, you know, now it's a something of a something and something.
Something of something.
I
Yeah,
really-
and
Okay.
something of
So Game of Thrones always had like Game of Thrones, and then there was like the whole. What are the other names of the books? I forget.
Clash of Kings.
Exactly. It's what is that called?
Crown of
where
Swords.
it like rolls off your tongue.
Yeah, those are very Game of Thrones type titles.
Yeah.
Alliteration.
Thank you,
Alliteration, yeah.
alliteration. So like all of Sarah J. Maas's books are like that too.
Yeah, A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of blah 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 blah, and you're like, oh, a court, huh? Why? And then
court.
and then
No.
all of her books, like because that book has been out a long time, since like 2010, and then she came out with them when BookTok became popular, and they're all in these neon cover, interesting looking covers, and you pick them up and you're just like, I like this neon book. It's probably the best book I've ever seen. Well, spoiler alert, Kristen and I DNF'd that series.
I know. I really, really tried, and I actually picked up was it the third book that we struggled to get through? Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the
we
third
got like
one.
halfway through the third
I've
book.
tried to read it like 3 times, and it's honestly, I think I'm at that point where it's probably like supposed to get really good,
It's not.
but there's always like that moment before the crap hits the fan where everything's all hunky-dory and like you plateau in the storyline and things get comfortable and happy and fun, and that's when the story kind of gets boring.
Yeah, it's
right?
a really long plateau.
It's really long. So I keep picking it up thinking, oh, next page is going to be like, you know, something crazy. And then it isn't. And so I feel like I'm playing the slots and I'm losing.
Yeah, and then I heard that the 4th book was just not that great. But the fifth book is supposed to be good. So I don't know.
I just can't.
And then she has 2 other series. And of course I own all of the books because I hit like a buy one get one sale or whatever when I bought them. So I didn't get them for that much money. And I'm just sitting on my shelf, and I'm just like, that series I couldn't get through was just very unenthusiastic for me. Or the rest of her books like this?
Yeah, I think though her books kind of fall under like somewhere in between what I consider a romance novel series and just a fantasy series. Because honestly, I think there was more romance in Twilight than there was in A Court of Thorns.
Oh gosh,
series
that
so
one,
far.
yeah, well, like the first book didn't really have any romance at all. It was just kind of
Because and maybe it's not just because she didn't develop their romance story, but because the focus is more on the story plot. You know,
yeah.
because a
and
lot
then-
of romance novels, it's like you said, it's mainly
it's
focused
mainly
on
romance.
the relationship and the day-to-day happenings of that relationship and how it unfolds into
Yeah.
some steamy relationship and a fallout and then a regrouping of coming to terms and then reconciling and falling in love at the end. Whereas A Court of Thorns and whatever ashes
Roses.
ring around the rosies is it's all about like the story plot developing, and then there's this romantic shift that happens in between the story plot that she discovers, like, oh, I kind of like this guy. So for me, like, I didn't really see that as a romance novel.
maybe the
It's more
first.
like a
It just
fantasy.
happens
You
to
know,
have a
her-
steamy, like,
First book that she wrote was actually geared towards young adult.
yeah. And then the second book was like,
more-
oh, it had a steamy scene in it. Like, everyone
Yeah.
knows chapter 52 or 54 or whatever.
Page, whatever,
Yeah. is like the chapter. It's all contained in that one chapter.
Yeah.
So
it's not spicy.
it's really not like a traditional Harlequin romance novel or of standard any type of
it's
romance
like
novel.
there's one sex scene, and it's good. Whereas if you're reading Ruby Dixon, it's like ooh, spur. if you don't,
but it's hers is book after book after book of developing a character.
Yeah.
But also it's the main focus is the relationship of those characters.
Yeah.
So.
The world building and like the background of like the aliens and stuff, that's secondary compared to
She
like
just
a
does
court.
it so well that
Yeah.
her world building is really good. Like I like the world building that she creates in A Court of Thorn and Roses. I love the world building. I actually don't like the character development.
No,
so
she could have
much.
done so much better with that. But I do agree with you, like the descriptions of like especially, and then all of the people wearing the masks, and the descriptions of all the creatures and the characters. I thought they were great, and I thought like that last chapter in that book, like the games and trials part. I'm just like, man, this book's pretty good when it gets to that part, And then, but it took so long to get to that part. Like. I had to pause halfway through that book. It's not a very long book, and I'm just like, where is this book going? And then finally it went somewhere, and we're like, okay, cool.
And it's interesting because you're a very skilled, learned reader, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that the mainstream is like really into that book. Maybe... and a lot of people have said that, that book was kind of the gateway to people picking up books again and reading again.
Yeah,
Then
that
they
is
realized,
the mainstream book for non-readers.
Yeah.
Right there. Like if you haven't read in like 20 years or if you've never read fantasy, that would be like the dip toe in the water fantasy book that you pick up and you're
exciting,
into it.
it's easy to read.
And it's based on Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
And so it's a story we all know, tale as old as time. So, yeah, it's kind of like when I say Stephen King is everybody's favorite horror author that doesn't read horror books.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, because he's so mainstream and everybody knows his stories that he's easy to read. And then like then you might like dip your toe. You read him first, and then you dip your toe a little bit into Dean Koontz, and then you dip your toe a little bit more into Joe Abercrombie, and then you really Grady Hendrix, and then you really start getting into horror genre right there. And I love Stephen King. He is the king of horror. But I've always said that Stephen King's everybody's favorite author that doesn't really read.
Right. But he
a
also
lot.
doesn't write romance.
No. So I would say, so where I'm going as, Sarah J. Maas is everybody's favorite author for people that don't read regularly. Or they're
romance or fantasy that's
yeah.
just discovering that they like it. It's
Yeah, so
like,
Stephen King's a discoverer, Sarah J. Maas discoverer.
I felt that way when I read Harry Potter, to be honest. Like, and I think
That
we
is
talked about
that's
that
a good
in
one
favorite
too. Yeah.
books, was that when I read the first Harry Potter book, it sparked something in me that I was like, oh, there's like this whole genre of books or potential for stories that I never knew I liked. And it got me hungry again to read.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always think back to like what my life would be like if I hadn't read that book, because I probably would have gone a really long time thinking I didn't like to read. Because I did. I was probably in my mid 20s when I read that book. And the years prior to that, I said, I don't like reading. I hate reading. I don't like books. It's boring, whatever. I always fall asleep. And then I read a book and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the first time like I was hungry to read the next page. And so I'll always be thankful of that moment, that pivotal moment in my life where I was just like, oh my gosh, I love reading, and then it kind of died down for a while. And then I picked up Ruby Dixon and it rekindled that desire to read again.
Yeah, it regenerated your...
That prompted me to read like 50 other books after that. Not just romance novels, but nonfiction as well. It just got my eyes rolling again. And so I'm glad that, as much as we knock ACOTAR as like a book we think isn't like the greatest book in the world, as people say it is on...
It got a lot of people into reading.
It got a lot of people into reading. So I can't
so did
knock
Twilight.
it. Right.
Yeah.
I can't knock it because a lot of people also feel the same way about Harry Potter. Like...
Yeah.
like, that's not the greatest fantasy story in the world. But to me, it was. Because at that moment in my life, it got me back into reading. And so I'm sure that a lot of women and men even who read that are now like branching out and finding so many other authors that they enjoy.
There's so many out there.
And I was going to say, like, what are some of your romantasy novel favorites, Amber? Because you're literally the book expert when it comes to like book suggestions. You're always the one that gets me into new authors.
Oh my gosh. And I've been doing a little sampling, like of course what's popular out there right now, like everybody's favorite other than Sarah J Maas. There's a book called Fourth Wing that everybody loves, and that's actually, I think they're going to make a TV show out of it. And I read Fourth Wing, and it is a super cute book. It's like it's kind of like the Hunger Games, but dragons.
Okay.
Like it's not in a dystopian sense, but in more of like not in a dystopian, the government's coming down and going to kill everybody sense, but in more of like a fantasy sense, but there's like that vibe.
Okay.
That vibe there, and like the trope in that is like magical academy,
Mm-hmm.
Enemies to lovers. And it's about it's about an unlikely girl entering this dragon riders academy, because that's like the chief military of this world are dragon riders, and that's who defends the world. And she's like the daughter of the president or whatever, or like maybe the military, like the person that's over the military. And she's like shorter than everybody else. Like she's, when you think of Dragon Rider, you think of like tall, muscular.
Yeah, so
type,
she's like underdog, and
yeah,
she's got the nepotism.
Yeah, nepotism, underdog, and her mother forces her into this academy because she thinks she's a weakling, and she's just like... And both of her older siblings went through the academy, like top marks and everything like that. And she wants to like be a scribe. She wants to go and work in the library and be a writer and stuff like that. And her mother's like, nope, go by. And the thing is, like, you have to complete this academy. Like you're either gonna complete it or you're gonna die. And it's a very brutal thing. Like there's like an initiation thing to even get into the academy, where you have to walk across this parapet, kind of like a tightrope type thing, and if that tests your balance, and if you had bad balance, you can't ride a dragon, you're gonna fall off of it and die. They're not gonna they force you to walk across it, and if you make it across, you're in the academy. Like that's how it starts out, and it's just kind of crazy from then on. And then another popular book BookTok book that's gotten people into reading is the Blood and Ash series, the From Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And I have read most of this year. I've only read the first book in the Fourth Wing series, and it was a pretty good book. Like, I'm going to read the second book. It didn't bore me. It's a good book. It's very interesting. The romance is really cute. Also, but like from a Kristen perspective, the romance is like not really central in that book either.
Mm-hmm.
And then so From Blood and Ash is another series. And this one is like kind of like, if you like everything, you might like this series because there's like vampires, zombies, gods, goddesses, everything going on in this one series. Religion gone bad. It's just a kind of a like a. It starts out in this world that's like not that great, and everybody's afraid to leave their house because there are these vampire-like things that lurk out in the night. This one girl, the chosen one, she's the chosen one, like Harry Potter. She was born, and she's supposed to like bring about great change, and they call her a maiden, and she's restricted. She has to wear a veil, and she's like stuck in this palace, and she can't leave, and pretty much nobody can leave because of these vampire things. And she just has like this really weird ordinary life. And then whenever like people turn a certain age, they are ascended, which means they supposedly go up into this higher realm of existence. And she lives among the ascended, which are basically kind of immortally like people, like they're more than human, I suppose. And it's very vague, and you don't really know what's going on. And then she has like a mentor who's like a father to her and everything like that. And then like weird things starting happening, like people disappearing, people dying. And then there's also the constant attack of like the vampire-y people. And then this guy shows up, and he's like one of the guards, and they become friends. And he ends up being like one of her head guards, supposedly accidentally. Not really. He totally like kidnaps her.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how the story takes off.
Oh, I thought you were telling the whole story.
No. That's just
I know, right?
That's
I was
literally
like,
just
okay.
the beginning of the book.
What?
That's literally just the beginning of the book.
That's so funny because sometimes I read them so quickly that I come back to them like a week later and I'm like, what did I just read?
Right.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
even remember. Like, of all the Ruby Dixon, I've read like 50 of her books or more, probably more than that. And I can name off like the characters
Yeah.
and like the overarching storyline,
Right.
but like I couldn't tell
But you could like talk about it like I just did.
No.
I don't remember all those details.
No.
either.
I really
this is
don't.
why I'm an English teacher.
Even books. Well, I mean, it depends on what
Yeah.
book it is. I mean, there are some books where I remember all the details like that, but not most books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even
Sometimes
like even whenever I read stuff like Edgar Allan Poe in my a lit class, and we had to like analyze it and dissect it and talk about like compare it to other books and stuff. Like I can't even remember like any of that stuff. So yeah, that's why you're an English teacher and I'm not, because no. Like I the symbolisms and the themes and like
right.
all of those things
Like-
that like teachers point out about books, like I
Mhm.
don't remember that kind of stuff
Yeah,
after I read it.
I often don't either.
It's gone. It's purely entertainment in the moment, and then it's gone.
Like I remember
A good
lot
book will give you lasting impact.
they're like, okay, so like a perfect example for me, you were talking about Stephen King earlier, The Stand. I read that when I was like in junior high or maybe early high school. And I still have vivid, even without the movie, because I have different visions from reading the book than I do from watching the movie. I still have very vivid memories of scenes in that book, you know. So I know the specifics of that book, but I think
He
I've
is
read
a
it.
master
Right.
storyteller.
He's very descriptive.
But I
too,
read
yeah.
1984 more recently than that. And I mean, I know the premise of the book, but I couldn't tell you anything.
Do you know the basic, like,
I know the basic.
Big Brother?
Right. I know the premise of the book, but that's.
Emmanuel Goldstein.
Yeah. But I just don't, I don't know any of the specific. It winds up becoming blended with other books and movies and things that I've read and seen.
Like, that's why I'm saying, like, the imagery of all of the Ice Planet books, I can close my eyes or see it with my eyes open.
Right.
I can even tell you, like, the color of the trees are pink, right? And the sky is this color, and the water on the ocean is green, emerald green. Like, I can tell you that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I can tell you, like, some of the clan members have hairy arms, and some of them have horns, and some of them, like,
Right.
one guy is missing a leg, right? So, like, I can tell you those things, but I also can't remember, like, I just remember Josie and Hayden. When I read that book, I cried because I empathized with the characters, and that was my favorite story. And then when I got the actual paperback book and read it again 2 years later, I couldn't remember why. I was like, I remember this was my favorite one, so I bought it. And then I was like, I'm going to read it again. And then I cried again like I hadn't read the book. Like, I forgot everything in the book.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
remembered it was my favorite. And then I read it again, and it was like reading it for the first time again. And it made me cry again.
Yeah.
So, but
That's how I
that's...
am when I read the Vampire Diaries, like the last book in the Vampire
that's
Diaries.
Well,
funny.
don't tell me nothing because I haven't read those yet. But yeah, I mean, I remembered some details from some books, and then other ones I don't. I really don't at all. So I don't know.
I don't know if there's like a world that really grabs me, and I'm like am making like comments about it and highlighting things as I'm reading it, and then it's gonna like stew with me for a while.
Right.
Like in like 5 years, I probably won't be able to tell you about that Blood and Ash book, you know, because I'll have read like probably 500 more books.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna tell you, like, I have read, like Kristen, I've done that before where I've read the same book twice and then realized that I'd already read it.
Like, and how long did it take you before you realized you'd already read
The whole
it?
book.
Yeah. You're like, I think I read this already, but I can't remember. So I'm going to read it again, and then,
So it's, it's now like books like that I've read so many times and taught so many times, like Gatsby. I could, describe that whole thing to you and probably tell the whole book to you.
That one
with the symbolism.
I don't know about symbolism.
I think there's something about it though, because you have to turn around and teach it to other people.
Yeah.
So
But that one was a very impactful read, and I read it, I don't know how many years ago, 4, 5, 6 maybe. And I remember a lot of detail about that one, but I think it was because of the impact. And I think that's the key there, is that it's the impact of the book that makes those details stick. Like The Shining or The Stand or I don't know,
So, like, for Kristen, it's Harry Potter, and she'll always remember Harry Potter and go back and think about all the details and the emotions that she read reading Harry Potter.
because I had never read a book and actually laughed out loud while I was reading. That was the
Yeah.
first time that it had ever happened to me.
yeah.
probably like my first book. Well, I mean, I had like others when I was a kid, but probably one of my, and I'm not going to say it's my very first impactful read, but was The Giver.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember every detail of that book. Despite, I mean, I've
that's
taught it too,
interesting
but
because I've read it, I've watched the movie, and I know the premise of the book. You know, I know basic things about the book, but specific scenes,
the
not quite so much.
The
Yeah.
Giver, and then there's a book called Speak by Lori Halsey Anderson. Like that book as well had a really huge impact on me when I was younger. And that one is like a contemporary, not even romance, is, about childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other books that I've read around that time that had a lot of impact, but those are like two of like the most.
Maybe that's why the romantasy novels don't stick long in my memory, because it doesn't pull heartstrings or make me think about how I feel about certain things.
Right, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like another book, I was just thinking another book that sticks with me, and I've talked about this book many times, is James Clavell's Shogun. And it's
I
because
knew you were going to say Shogun.
Yeah.
As soon as you said that in my mind, I was
like
thinking
such
Shogun.
a gut wrenching story, and so, that scenes stick in my head. Parts of it are just in, and I've read it multiple times. And it makes me cry. So I don't know.
Yeah. Another one for me is Of Mice and Men.
Yeah.
Like that one is so impactful.
And see, and I read that one also in high school, and I can remember some basics about it. The Depression era, and is it Lenny?
Lenny, yeah.
Is one of the two male characters, and he had a mental disability. Yeah, which was not what they called it back then, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's basically what I remember out of that book. And I know it's a really powerful book. But like I said, it just, it was 40 years ago for me. More than 40 years ago for me. So, I don't remember.
Well, I mean, like you said, it's like it's the person, like, and how they're feeling when they're reading it.
Yeah.
Like, I could read Ice Planet Barbarians number 10 and think that it was just the most beautiful prose in the world, and like highlight every loving line in that story. I haven't read that one yet, but just be like, Chris, this is gonna be my forever book.
We're going to have to tag Ruby Dixon on this podcast. Y'all need to send her a link to it. No.
Well, I guess I am currently reading a book that, in the vein of Harry Potter, it is a kind of like in the vein of 50 Shades of Grey, but not kinky. It started out as a Harry Potter fan fiction.
Okay.
And it was written on a fan fiction website as a Harry Potter fan fiction, and it became so popular that the author took it and she rewrote it, took out all the Harry Potter elements, kept the idea of the characters and the descriptions and stuff like that, and took out all the Harry Potter elements, and she rewrote it and put like a new fantasy system to where they're not, witches and wizards, they're alchemists, and twisted things around, but it's like still, and it's like Harry Potter meets The Handmaid's Tale.
Weird.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
What's the name of this book series?
It's not a series. It's a standalone book.
It's a standalone.
Ah.
Book.
What?
Okay. What?
You read a standalone
No,
book?
It's
What?
called Alchemized.
Oh, interesting.
And the author is named Sin Lin Yu.
Mm.
And it is a what, and it explores the question, what would have happened if, Voldemort or the bad guy won at the end of the Harry Potter series. It's like the next thing that happens.
Huh.
Yeah.
Of course, like I said, it's not Harry Potter, but it's inspired by Harry Potter.
Right.
And it's like if Voldemort won, although in the book his name is Moreau. If Moreau won, what would have happened? How would the world
Interesting.
have ended up?
Interesting.
Okay.
So, the magicians.
I was waiting for
You
a
were
pause
just waiting
so
to
that
say
I could-
that.
See, the magicians
I haven't got to get a word in edgewise. No.
is like a kind of a Harry Potter homage as well.
The magicians is like taking Harry Potter and the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and mixing them together because
Yeah.
because
sort of.
there is this whole thing about this other world that's in a book,
Yeah.
and the characters in the book are
And
actually like real people,
and it's classic battle of good and evil. And
yes. But it's like if Harry Potter's Hogwarts wasn't a kid's school, like a kid's private school, it was actually like a college, and there was like a fraternity and drinking and crazy wild
and that's
20
why I
some
like
year
the
olds.
magicians.
Yes,
Yeah.
being wild. I loved the TV show, and then I read the book and I was like, wow. I mean, like the book is just like the show,
Yeah.
but it's almost like the whole I don't know, like it's more compressed into the first book. There's a lot going on. And there's like some romance in there in a sense, because there's definitely some relationships that build in
Yeah.
his story. So I really like that one. If I was going to compare like a romantasy that's not a romance focused story, I would probably say Magicians. I liked that one better.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the story to me was like it was really going somewhere.
Right.
Versus Akatar, I guess you could say. But I definitely would recommend that one too if you are if you're interested in fantasy, and you like a little bit of romance.
Right.
But maybe because some people don't like
the heavy romance.
Because it's very adult.
Stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
So you wanted to mention.
I wanted to mention a few because I was like, I sat here while y'all were talking back and forth because I couldn't say anything about ACOTAR or anything because I haven't read any of those.
Hey, for once.
And so I did a little research because I was like, well, I mean, I'm currently reading Outlander. Okay. So, I mean, right there, number one, that's probably my best recommendation for a romantasy right now because I started out watching the series and then now
did you finally start reading the book?
Oh yeah, I'm almost through with the first book. So, and I'm loving it, and I'm loving how closely the show has stayed with the book so far. I know.
I'm covering my eyes and my ears and my mouth because I don't want to say anything. But
right, I know that changes over time.
Yeah, but the saying of the book's always better is 1,000% accurate in this case too.
Oh yeah.
If you love the show, you will absolutely love it.
But I realized there was these other things that came up on the list as I was looking, and I was like, oh, okay. So obviously Twilight, The Magicians. The Witching Hour by Anne Rice, which I read years ago, in the 90s.
They just came out with a TV show.
Yeah, I think so. And so it really was a romance between and I don't remember the characters, but it was one of the Mayfair witches and the guy. And
oh, is that the name of the show, Mayfair Witches?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
And so there's that one, which I loved, and I read 2 or 3 of the books. So, I haven't read all of
You'll
them.
have to watch the show now.
Yeah,
and
I
tell us
know,
how it
right?
goes.
And then a book that I read more recently in the recent years, and I'm not sure if this really falls into fantasy, maybe, but The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is like amazing. And it's, I'll just be really brief. It's this girl like several hundred years in the past who is, her family's going to marry her off to this widowed man who needs a wife for his children, or a mother for his existing children because his wife died, and she doesn't want to get married, and so she makes a deal with a demon or something, to not get married so that she won't have to get married. And the whole story revolves around how she moves through time, and then but also how she is involved in this relationship, this romance with this person. And I can't give anything away.
Yeah. It's hard whenever there's like, it's almost paradoxical. You'll like spoil it if you.
Yes, yeah. So it's this relationship. The relationship is is the focus of the book, but it's also the the what happened and how it all came to be. It's just wild, but it's a really good book, and it's a page turner. You can read it really fast and be done with it. And then another one, I didn't even realize it was a book. I just thought it was a movie, The Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
So it's set in a fantasy kingdom.
Yeah,
Also,
I didn't even think about that.
Also a clean romance, because it wasn't written to be, well, I don't know if the book is, but I kind of doubt that it was. So the movie definitely wasn't very racy. So
Yeah.
In fact, it was more comedic than anything. So, but yeah, those were some of the ones that popped up on my radar, and I'm not a huge romantasy. I like fantasy genre. I'm not all that crazy about straight up romance, so that's where the romantasy kind of loses me a little bit, but good stuff is good stuff. I mean, like, that's why I'm enjoying The Outlander, because the writing is just really good, even though there's racy parts or whatever.
I think you would like Alchemized. It is very well written, beautifully written. I sent Kristen like a shot of like one of the lines in the book, and that line literally made me cry.
Cool.
So, you're talking about romance and everything, but let's talk about next week. What are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going to pick up where we left off with Anatomy of an Epidemic. We're going to talk about how some of those psychotropic meds were discovered, how the pharmaceutical companies and the psychiatric industry came into power.
Yeah.
And some of the effects, the long-term effects of taking these medications. And we'll see how much of it we can get through in the next episode.
So from romance to medicine, is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
The continuation of BookTok.
It is.
Okay, guys, I want to hear from our listeners. Send us an email. Hit us up on Facebook. What's your favorite book? Especially if you read Romantasy. What is your favorite Romantasy book? And do you agree or disagree? Mine and Kristen's take on ACOTAR. Also, if you're a twihard, hit us up because we love you. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.